So, as you already have known from the title, I fractured my backbone. And yes, it happened from bouldering, which you may also have known that it was like my favorite activity in the last year. And in fact, in my 2024 wrap up video, I shared with you how much I love this sport because it helped me with my fitness, it helped me with my relationship with Kevin. But look what happened. It broke my bone. So, for this episode, my whole plan is to kind of tell you the story of how the fall happened because I think a lot of you have a lot of questions about it. And honestly, I have learned so much about life, about myself in this journey too. So I wanted to take this episode as a story time episode because I think storytelling is the best way to learn something. And basically, I'll tell you the story and kind of like embed all the learnings that I have along this journey. So sit back, relax, and let's pick up where we left off. So the last time that I talked to you was in December, where I was wrapping up the year. I'm someone that does a lot of yearly review on my goals, on my intention and stuff like that. And by early December, I have already set an intention that I want to have for 2025. And because I know that 2025 is going to be the year that I am getting married, and I know that wedding planning is pretty stressful and it takes up a lot of my time. So I knew that this year is going to be filled with a lot of uncertainties. Like the key word is uncertainties, and that is why I have decided that my intention for 2025, like the word of the year that I decided on, was embrace. Like I want to embrace on all these uncertainties that's coming my way. And I'm just going to embrace whatever challenges that comes my way, embrace all these things that I'm so afraid of and all the fear that I'm about to face, and embrace life. That was the intention that I set for 2025. And I feel like because I set this intention, it has helped me so much in navigating what happened in the past 3 months. Oh, and by the way, if you are listening to this on an audio podcast, I would highly encourage you to switch over to video because throughout this video, I would also be attaching photos and videos from the accident and also like my recovery journey because I personally wanted to view back onto these footages just so there is a place for me to reminisce on my journey as well. I'm a huge believer of documenting my journey, whether it's the good or the bad, because it really helps me to reflect on my life and to really understand my personal life journey as I get older. So yeah, the date was 23rd December. And it was supposed to be like the final bouldering session that I have before I go off for holidays with my family because Christmas was coming. I was bouldering with a few friends. A close friend of mine, MJ, was there. Kevin also popped by a little bit later. And I had a lot of fun that day. I was solving a lot of problems that I thought I couldn't. And honestly, during this period of time, I was at the strongest I've ever been physically. Like in the photos that I took on that day, you can actually see how defined my back muscles were. And I was solving a lot of overhang problems, which are this kind of like route where the wall is really leaning towards you. So you have to use a lot of strength or the gravity will pull you down. And it was towards the end of my climbing session, probably around 6 something p.m., where physically I was already tired, right? And I was playing around, solving this problem that my friend couldn't solve. And I was just climbing. It was a pretty tough route. And in fact, I'm going to insert the video here that you can see. I struggled a little bit, but I really pushed myself to reach for the top. But what happened in this specific route was I reached for the top, both of my hands reached there together, which is how you're supposed to wrap up a climbing route. But at this top that I reached, it was very slopey and very slippery from the chalk from other climbers prior to that. And because of that, I slipped and fell very quickly. Upon checking the CCTV, right, when I fell, I actually fell foot first, but I sat down really very quickly. And from the CCTV, you could tell that I was holding onto my lower back and I was shouting pain immediately. So how we actually knew this was because I was very fortunate that there was a doctor who was also climbing on that day. Her name is Cheryl, and honestly, I cannot thank her enough in this entire journey because she really took control of the situation immediately. So immediately after I fell, I was in so much pain. Like, it was so pain that I couldn't breathe because with every inhalation that I took, I couldn't. It was so fucking painful. I struggled to inhale, but I could exhale. So at that point, I was just lying there, struggling to catch my breath, and she really took control of the situation. The doctor was like, okay, just breathe first, just breathe first. My name is Cheryl, I'm here with you. And she took control of the situation. She got the team from the bouldering studio to bring me an ice compression and put it under my lower back. And during this time, she was like diagnosing me. She was checking if I could feel every single one of my toes. She was pushing my leg up to see if I was experiencing any pain, right? Because it was a lower back pain. So we were pretty afraid of hurting a nerve or something like that. But she really took control of the situation. And as she was diagnosing me, everything felt okay, right? So I didn't expect it to be bad. I just thought like, okay, I'm just gonna sit up after this 15 minutes of ice compression and I'll be fine. So I was lying there scared, but at the same time, I was just talking to Kevin. I was just talking to her until 15 minutes later, when we removed the ice compression and I tried to sit up and I couldn't because it was so fucking painful. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most painful, it was at the 12. I couldn't fucking sit up. It was so painful. And so the doctor was like, okay, I think we need to call an ambulance. And that's when it hit me. I was like, no, what? Are you serious? And that's when I started crying and the first thing that came out of my mouth at that point, I was like, but it's Christmas. Because it's the 23rd of December. I had the whole Christmas planned to celebrate with my family here in Kuala Lumpur. My sister already flew in from China and I was supposed to meet her for KBBQ after bouldering. My parents were driving into town on Christmas Eve. We've booked an Airbnb. I've planned everything, right? And so that was the first thing that came to my mind. I cried and I was like, but it's Christmas. And at that point, the doctor said something, and that would kind of be my mantra or my reminder for the rest of this journey. She's like, it's okay. Let's just focus on the next step first. Let's just focus on the next step first. Because we don't know what happened to my body. We don't know how long it's gonna take. But what I can do at that moment is not to worry about Christmas and all the plans that I've made, but to just focus on the next step first. And so that's what I did. And then they called the ambulance. The ambulance came in like probably half an hour time. I got carried onto a stretcher, wheeled out of the shopping mall. All the strangers were looking at me. And I recall at that moment, I just turned to my friend and I was like, MJ, document this for me, video this. I was in pain, okay? But the content creator in me, I couldn't let go of this opportunity. And honestly, it's not for vanity purposes, but it's more for documenting because I know that as I go past this journey, I would want to look at these videos again. So anyways, sidetrack, coming back into the ambulance, I was wheeled onto it. My view at that point onwards was really just the ceiling because I couldn't sit up, I couldn't move around by myself. I was just being wheeled around, lying on a stretcher on a hospital bed. That's it. So as I was looking at the top of this ambulance, turn around to look at my friend MJ, in the ambulance, and then the siren started ringing in the ambulance, and I was like, whoa, it's my first time in an ambulance. Like, I mean, as much as it was painful, honestly, it's just like a wow journey for me because I've not been through this before in my life, and it's not like I wished I could, but it just happened, right? And so then we got to the hospital, got an x-ray done. It was painful for me to even turn sideways to do the sideways x-ray. And then we got back into the emergency ward. And if you have been hospitalized before, you would know that the process going through admission or just being in the emergency ward is just a lot of waiting. And as we were waiting for the x-ray result, that's when I picked up my phone and called my sister and my nieces. And trust me, I feel like when it comes to your family, at least for me with my mother and my sisters, we are always pretty intuitive about what's going on with our siblings. When I called my sister, she's like, I knew something happened because I just told Kevin to text them that I can't make it for dinner, I can't make it for KBBQ. I didn't tell them about what's next yet because I didn't know whether I can go home or not or stuff like that. So when I called her from the hospital, I was like, hey, I'm in the hospital right now. I need you to help me to pack up some stuff because I probably need to stay here. But don't panic, finish your dinner first and then you come over. Right? And my sister's like, I knew it. I knew something was off. But yeah, so then my sister and my nieces came over. The x-ray result was not clear on the first day. It's a long story, but basically they just missed out on scanning the full spinal bones and they missed out on a fracture. But because I was still in such immense pain, they had to admit me for pain management, right? Initially, I was very reluctant to do so. I told Kevin like, but it's Christmas, my family is coming over, I want to go home. But Kevin really sat me down and no, he couldn't sit me down because I couldn't sit up. But Kevin told me, he was like, okay, but how are we going to take care of you when you're home? Can you even sit up and walk now? And I was so stubborn. I tried to sit up by myself on the hospital bed and I had to pull the side bars and really push myself to come up. And it was so much pain. I was humbled and I was like, okay, I'm gonna stay in the hospital tonight and I'm not gonna fight anymore. I think that was the moment when I really surrendered that things are not gonna go according to my plan. And yeah, so we waited for the paperwork to be done. I'm so grateful that I have insurance and it is able to cover all the expenses for this. You gotta remember, I came from sports. I came from a bouldering gym. So I was still in my sports bra. I was in my track pants. I was kind of sweaty. And so Kevin had to help me off my sports bra. And he had to hold me to walk to the toilet because I couldn't even walk. And sitting on a toilet to pee was really painful too. And he had to hold on to me. And honestly, it was one of the most humbling experience I've ever had in my journey. And from there on, even with a painkiller, when I sit down to eat, it was painful. When I lie down to sleep, I couldn't turn sideways because it was painful. I was just in pain for pretty much 24 hours plus. Oh, I'm surprised that I cried because I told this story so many times in the past few months, but I think I'm really reflecting on the journey now and realize how scared I was at that moment. Okay. Wow. And so the next day came and a nurse came in and told us it's time for our MRI because we couldn't find the source of the pain yet. Right? And because I still couldn't walk yet, I was being wheeled in a wheelchair to the room for a scan. It was my first time going through an MRI and it was like a 30 minutes long process. It's actually pretty long. But they gave me a headphone with music in it and I passed out while it was happening. So honestly, it was not too scary. And after the MRI scan, a few hours later, the orthopedic doctor came in and told me like, hey, you have a fracture in your backbone. It's like a minor compression fracture. So you think of it, let's think of our skeletal bones as like tiny cans of canned food stacked up together, right? Like just tiny cans, tiny cups that's stacked up together. And basically one of my bone, my T12 bone, was actually squished. It was just squished to be flattened up. And I have a minor compression fracture. But the good news is I didn't need to go through a surgery. I just need to be in a back brace to prevent further harm, further hurt for the bone, for it to slowly heal by itself. So it's good that at that point we have a diagnosis and that we didn't have to go through a surgery. But the doctor did recommend for me to stay for another night because I was still in pain and I was still trying to adjust with everything that was going on. So I had to stay for another night. But I think by the second night dinner, the pain was slightly reduced. I still couldn't turn when I lied down, but I think having the diagnosis and kind of knowing what's the next step for me has helped me to feel a little bit better in that journey. And during this process, it was pretty sweet to see how Kevin really stepped up and really took care of me during this process. For the 2 whole nights that I was staying in the hospital, Kevin never once left, except for once when I was like sleeping in a bed and he went out for a meal with a friend. But the rest of the time, he really just stayed in, took care of me, helped me with toilet, helped me with everything. And that's when I really knew like, wow, I'm so glad that this is the guy that I'm marrying. Because you know what they say in wedding vows, like through sickness and in pain or something, right? And Kevin really showed up for me during this season of time. And honestly, one thing that I've learned in this journey is to really surrender my control and to ask for help too. Because I literally couldn't do things by myself. Like even after I got discharged from the hospital, everyone in my family members, in fact, like everyone was like, just sit down and rest. We are gonna bring things to you. Please don't move. Like everyone was very strict to me in that sense, and they know me because I'm so used to being so strong and independent for the past 10 years in my life. It was hard for me at first, but I really had to learn to surrender control and to ask for help. So I think I was in painkillers for about 10 days. And I think by the 3rd night, I could at least turn a little bit when I was sleeping. But during this period of time, like after I discharged from a hospital, right, it was just a lot of adapting to this new normal with my physical disability. So I had to shower with a stool in the bathroom. And when I brush my teeth, I couldn't bend down to wash my mouth. So I need to stand by like a cup for me to, what's the word? Gargle? Or yeah, like to wash my mouth after I brush my teeth. I couldn't cook at first because I couldn't do heavy lifting. I definitely couldn't drive at the early stages too. Because I was wearing the brace all the time and I couldn't bend down. So I had to, struggle to squat down to pick things up if I dropped things on the floor. Like it was just very limiting. Like my movements was just restricted. My legs and my knees was actually getting sore from like having to squat down and support the upper body's weight. It was a lot of adapting. And by week 2, I think I was already starting to feel really bored and frustrated for not being able to do most of the things that I want to do. And especially because it was the start of the new year. And as I mentioned at the start of this holiday, by early December, I already had my goals and my intentions set for the new year. But because of this injury, I literally couldn't do much things. But good thing, like I mentioned, is that I've set my word of the year early on, and it was to embrace embrace whatever that was coming on my way. And during this journey, it was when I started to just focus on my intention to embrace this pain. Like, I'm someone who truly believes that everything that happens to you happens for a reason. And I just reminded myself, like, I'm just gonna embrace this. I think I'm just supposed to really slow down and to rest at the start of the year. Like, I'm just meant to do this because honestly, there's just not much that I could do at the moment. And after the 6 weeks of being in a brace, when I go back on yet another follow-up x-ray, what really amazed me was that as I felt like I was not doing anything, as I felt like I was so restricted and I was forced to lie down so much and to rest, my body was still continually doing its work to heal itself. I had this side-by-side x-ray of my scan on week 3 versus week 6. And when the doctor showed me that, like, look at these new bone tissues that were formed as you were resting in the past 3 weeks. And I was like so amazed. I was like, wow, my body is capable of doing this. My body is capable of healing itself. And that really puts all the frustrations and annoyance that I had for the past few weeks of not being able to do much, like, into another perspective. Like, it really got me realizing, like, yes, this is what I'm supposed to do. Just trust the journey. Now, of course, the doctor also explained, and that's because I'm still relatively young and I've led a pretty healthy lifestyle. Like, I ate very balanced diet while I was recovering. I was eating a lot of protein, stuff like that. So my healing journey was pretty smooth. He told me that he has also seen some people who are in my age, but because they are smokers, their bones were still hollow after 6 weeks. And that's because, this is a fun fact that I want you to know too. And that's because nicotine really inhibits the growth of new bone tissues. Something like that, right? So if you are a smoker, please reconsider this lifestyle habit because it may actually really affect your growth or your healing, especially as we are getting older. One more fun fact that I learned about our bones is also because the bone is the strongest organ in the body. It's gonna take the longest time to heal. So even at week 6, right, my bone was probably only like 30-40% healed, or maybe 50%. I forgot the percentage, but even at this rate right now, I'm probably only at 60-70% healed. And for the bones to heal completely, it takes 1 whole year. Okay, so let that be the fun fact that you learned today, and let that be a reminder that as we are getting older, as we are aging, please be careful of your bone health. So after this 6 weeks of being in a brace, when I was finally free from it, that's when I kickstarted my physiotherapy journey. Because I was in a brace for so long and the muscles around the fracture was really trying to guard the injury, the muscles on my back was just really tight, and I had to first work on flexibility for all these back muscles first before we reintroduce weight training and strength training into the body again. So right now, as I am recording this episode, I'm at about week 13, I think. And I'm basically in a stage where I've started strength training again very slowly. And every exercises that I do always humbles me because they used to be things that were so easy for me, like squatting without weights or like doing lateral side raises. Like really simple exercises really exhaust me really quickly. But I am slowly working towards a stronger health again. And doctor says that I'll be able to do contact sports again 4 months after the injury, which is probably a month from now. And I'm allowed to climb again, but I'm kind of traumatized by the bouldering fall, and Kevin was traumatized too. He's not letting me to go back to boulder. But I might go back to rock climbing again. Rock climbing is the one with the harness and you focus more on endurance. But with harness and with someone belaying you, the impact is lower. And I think I feel safer that way. So that's probably what I'll be going back to. So that's kind of like the journey, the story of the fall. I might have left out quite some stuff over there, but I didn't want this story to go too long either. So right now, I also kind of want to just give you a generic life update so that for those of you who are listening for the first time, it gives you an idea of who I am and where I am in my adulting journey. And for those of you who have been tuning in for the past few years, right, I thought it's also timely for me to give you an update of where I am now as compared to where I was 2 years ago when I started this podcast. So number one, I am healing from a back injury. My backbone, my T12 bone is squished and it's forever gonna be shorter than it used to be. And I am working on my strength to be stronger again so that I can do all the fitness activities that I love. Number two, I'm also planning for my wedding that is happening this year. So I would also be taking you along in this wedding planning and marriage preparation journey because I'm learning a lot during this process. I am currently also working on selling the digital templates and tools that have helped me so much in managing and balancing my day job and podcast producing and wedding planning and all that's going on in my life. So I'm pretty much starting a business on the site. I'm working on a website too. And I'm also working on a new VIP day offer that's relating to this template. I would share more with you in another episode. And on top of that, I am still attached to my day job. I'm currently organizing a retreat for 200 people, and it's happening very, very soon. And I also had some travel plans too. So as you can see, I have quite a lot of things going on. And honestly, if you ask me, I don't think this is healthy. I think it's too much load for someone who is still recovering from a traumatic injury. But at the same time, I'm trying to figure it all out and to find the right balance for myself. So it's gonna be an ongoing process for me to eliminate the things that I can choose not to do or to outsource as much as possible. So having said that, right, for this upcoming season, I don't think I'm able to commit to a weekly episode anymore. I am trying to commit to 2 to 3 episodes each month, which is lesser than my 4 episodes a month. But I feel like this routine or this posting schedule would allow me to have more space to think and to create more quality content that I feel good in sharing with you. I wanted to take this chance to also show you that you can still show up for the things that you love despite your busyness in life, despite the struggles that you are going through in life. I personally am trying to unlearn from the past ways of doing things on how you have to show up consistently and as much as possible in order for your audience to remember you and stuff like that. I get it. And in an ideal world, I would still want to show up as frequently as possible. But honestly, at this moment, as I'm so busy with all these things, I need to build a momentum that's more sustainable for me. So I guess that will be it for what I want to share with you today. I hope that this episode inspires you to trust your life journey, to embrace whatever negative things that comes your way, and to just keep on fighting for yourself as you grow in your personal growth journey. So thank you so much for journeying along. I'm really excited to bring you more fun episodes in this coming season and to grow old together with you. That's all that I have for you, and I'll see you in my next episode. Bye bye.